everything that God showed me, I had to meditate. Meditate the word day and night. A lot of times we do not take the word that God tell us and speak it over and over. See ourselves walking in it continually. And this is the problem. This is why we can't see the now. This is why we can't see next. So this is not just a one-time thing. I want y'all to go take that home and do that daily. It don't have to be 30 minutes, but at least give God 5 or 10 minutes to see yourself walking in the promises that he has for you. Because honestly, I remember moving here, and God told me, I'll give you a 5-bedroom. And when I moved here, of course, most of y'all remember, I was homeless. I didn't have anything, but I listened to God and I obeyed God. And I kept seeing myself walking into 5-bedroom homes. I would even go and look at houses. Take pictures. Me and my kids, we'd just go look at houses and see ourselves in them. I created vision boards just to see myself walking in it. I remember telling one friend, they said, well, what type of house you looking for? I said, a 5-bedroom. She laughed at me. Said, how you gonna do that? You're not working. You just got here. I said, I don't know, but God told me, so I gotta trust what God say. It may not be in my own strength. I don't know how God is gonna make it happen, but to God be the glory. Listen, as I meditated that vision, I stayed in a townhouse. God blessed me with a townhouse. That was a journey too. Dad, you know. That was a journey too. But I stayed in that townhouse in probably about less than a year, because once Daisha came back from the military, they said you can't stay here any longer. It's too many people in this house. Kiki moved down here. It was her husband, my grandson. The whole family was in a 3-bedroom. They said, you got to go. I said, okay. So the same realtor, it was a blessing, y'all. The same realtor that was used as an angel to get me into that place is the same person that said, hey, I know the landlord that wants you to move because there's too many people there, but you've been a good tenant. You've paid on time. You did everything. I want to help you. She said, have you thought about purchasing? I said, I thought about it. But it wasn't in my budget, and it wasn't in my credit score either. So she said, let's try again. Let's try it anyway. So I said, okay, we'll try. I set out to look for some houses. Me and the kids, we go around. We're looking for houses. We found one that we like. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to believe God for this one. And I seen God work. I seen God do miracles. She, as a realtor, was like, you know what, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay me anything for doing this. I'm doing this for free. Then they told me I was going to have to put $5,000 down for the house. I had a dream before they called, and they said that in a dream I hurried up and said yes. I didn't know where I was going to get the money from, but that same day they called and they said, you know, you're going to have $5,000 to close. I said, okay. She said, oh, but your realtor says she's doing this for free. If she signs a paper and says that she's still going to do this, you don't have to pay nothing. I called her real quick. And she said, oh, yeah, tell them send the paper over. I got it. She signed it. I end up, when I closed, I got $2,000 from them. So, and it only happened because I seen myself walking in what God said he had for me. So a lot of times y'all not seeing it because you don't see it. You don't see it. Yeah, it's a good word. Okay, yeah, I heard the word. But how is it going to happen? Be it unto you according to your faith. Your faith is only cultivated when you sit down with the Father and say, okay, what am I to do now? What do I do now? Because you promised me this. Your reputation is on the line. We have a good daddy. He's a promise keeper. He don't lie to you. But you don't see it because you don't believe him. Without faith, it's impossible to please him. So if you're not pleasing him, you're not going to get the promise. So we got to learn how to please God. We're just saying, you know what? God, I trust you. And I've been in this house, y'all, literally 4 years. Since my daughter left, remember, it was all of us together, the whole family. Things happened in my home. Transition had to happen. I didn't know how I was gonna fulfill all those bills by myself. But I said, Lord, I trust you. My first thought when she said I'm moving out was not, oh my God, what am I gonna do? My first thought was, okay, Lord, you got me here. You're the promise keeper. You gotta keep it. I'm just going to walk in whatever it is that you tell me to walk into. And she told me, I smiled. I said, okay, Lord, do you? Since she's been gone, while I was working, I wasn't making enough. God made it so that every bill was paid. It may have not been on time at that point, but every bill ended up paid. Now, God tells me, now you got to just leave corporate America altogether. You got to just walk away from your job. Listen, Peaches came with that word. I was like, girl, that is a good word for you. When you going to do it? But God, I knew God had been telling me, you know, it's time to leave your job. It's time to leave your job. But, of course, we're always waiting on God. God, whenever you going to do it, I know you'll put me in a position to just leave this job. Okay, either they're going to fire me or you're about to make everything else that I'm doing prosper so that I can leave. That was not God's plan for me. He said, is this job your God or am I your God? Is everything that you're doing your God? Because even the ministry and everything else. If I decide to tell you to walk away from that, would you? Could you? I said, all right. So as I surrendered, I'm sitting here in church. And Dad kept saying it I don't know why, he kept saying it once a week, every Sunday. I don't know who this is for. But God is talking to somebody. Don't let your job stop you from doing what I told you to do. Now, he would only say it one time in service, y'all, so. I'd be like, oh, that's all right, Lord. Whenever you do it, I'm ready. So it got heavy because he kept saying it. He kept saying it. Every time I'm here, I'm like, all right. So the last time, I'm standing there. He say it again. And I say, all right, Lord, I hear you. I hear you. I gave myself a date to leave the job. But if this is what you want me to do, let him say it again. He only said it. I had to throw out the fleece, y'all. Had to make sure. So he getting ready to close. I'm like, I'm home free. He wasn't talking to me. He stood right here and said, I'm feeling it so strongly in my spirit. And I turn around and I look at him like what it is now. He go, don't let your job stop you from doing what I told you to do. All right, I surrender. But then fear came over me. And I went to Peaches. And I'm like, Peaches, girl. I'm like, that was for me. She came up here to Dad. She was like, let's pray for Elegance. Everything that Dad said, because he didn't know. He had no idea. But everything he said, he prophesied everything that God was saying to me. He knew it was the spirit of fear that had came upon me. But we know fear is not of God. So that's how we know to walk into it. When that fear come, that anxiety begin to happen, walk into it. So again, y'all, next is now, right? So we got a couple of verses we going to go over. So the first one is Hebrews 11:1. Give it to me in the NKJV. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Substance is matter, right? Now faith. It's not saying later. It's saying now, right now. We're always waiting on God. And we're always asking God to do something when He has given us all the ability to do it ourselves. But it's the substance of things hoped for. Substance is matter, it's material, it's stuff. Then you got hope. I know we use hope loosely. Well, I hope they do that. That's in a negative way, right? But when it comes down to God, it's a feeling of trust. We are expecting what we desire. So we have to be in expectation of whatever it is that God has promised you. Whether it's your house, whether it's your car, whether it's your business, whether it's marriage, whether it's finances, no matter what it is, if God said that it's for you, you got to begin to believe and trust God for it. And you got to see yourself walking in it. It's material. It's stuff. The first place that it really happens is in the spiritual realm. If I don't see it in the spirit, I can't see it in the natural. So it's already substance in the spiritual realm. That's the walkie-talkies. Then you have evidence, which is available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief is true. Proof, confirmation, or verification. We have much evidence that God is God. A lot of times we don't build monuments to show ourselves when God came through for us. We've been taught to look at everything negative, everything bad that has happened to us. And you see that, and it magnifies and it amplifies in our life because why? A lot of things that we say are negative. So when we speak these things out, this is what we will have. Instead of saying, okay, I remember when God did this and that for me. If He did it before, He'll do it again. So why am I so concerned with the past, with the future? And my past has already shown me that God got me. He won't fail me. I'm still here. I'm still standing. Yeah, it was some obstacles that I had to go through. But I'm here, and I saw the hand of God. So sometimes you got to build a monument to show yourself, you know what, God did it before. So He will do it again. That's where we begin to lose the things that God has given us because we don't see what He did before. You let everything in life, the world system, everything take you away from what God said belongs to you. Faith is the only substance you need because it produces the trust in God you need in order to see what you strongly desire. Knowing that God won't fail you will produce the evidence. God gave me that to give to y'all. You got to see it in the now. We're always waiting on the Father. But I'm going to get back to that. Let me get to the next verse. Matthew 11:12. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. When you are passive, that is laziness in the spirit. When you are sitting up saying, I'm waiting on God, you being too passive with what God has told you belong to you already. You prayed for stuff, you've seen it manifest, and now you won't go and take what really belongs to you. No, I'm just waiting on God to move. But God said, I've already given it to you. I've already supplied it for you. Why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? I had to learn this in my own journey. And a lot of times, y'all, you hear a lot of negative things, right? Which I'm going to go real quick to the parable of the two sons in Matthew 21, verses 28 through 31. We hear a lot of cliches. Certain cliches like, you're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. But if I'm heavenly minded, I could change everything in this earth. Because my mind are not on things of this world. I know who my daddy is. I know who my father is. I know he won't leave me and forsake me. So everything else is a lie. It don't matter what bill come to the house. It don't matter what anybody else say about me. I know that God got me. All right. The next cliche, y'all, that we hear a lot. And it's a good one. It's real good. But we hear delayed obedience is still disobedience. But God don't think like us. We could look at our kids and we could tell them, hey, go clean up your room. And if they don't do it when we tell them to do it, they about to get the business. But God, in his loving kindness, is different from our love and sobriety when it comes down to our children and our family and our life. But this right here, go back to it, Peach, help me understand, because I remember being in a church service, and I remember I was in Chicago, I had the non-for-profit, and I'm like, Lord, nothing is happening. I'm doing everything you told me to do. Everything you told me to do. In the field every day. I'm going everywhere you tell me to do. Everything. Nothing is like, I'm thinking I'm in my rightful place. So I'm like, okay, God. Then you hear, you didn't do the last thing God told you to do. So I'm like, okay, God, well, what is it that you told me to do? What did you tell me to do? But every time I asked God, I didn't hear nothing. And I said, what? I'm not hearing nothing. And I went through that for a while. I went to this conference, and this prophet looked at me and said, the Lord ain't going to deal with you too much longer being lazy. I said, I know that wasn't for me. Because, baby, I do too much. I'm up every day doing what God told me to do, doing what he commanded me to do. What do you mean? Y'all, I kept telling God, I'm waiting on you. I wasn't aggressive enough in the spirit to say, no, Satan, that belonged to me. I know what God told me belonged to me. I wasn't aggressive enough to take what God said belonged to me. I was always passive with it. One thing's for sure, when you know God and you're intimate with God, and you waiting on God. You want God's blessing on whatever it is. But when you're intimate with God, you're going to hear God. God going to show you if that's the thing for you. If that's the person for you. He's going to show you. He's not going to leave you out here in the cold. So you got to learn to trust God and speak the word only. I just firmly believe in, Pete is laughing when I say this all the time. I don't believe we serve a God that will dangle something in our face and tell me I can't have it. If you know I want it and I desire it, he's not going to dangle it in my face and tell me, you can't have this now. Why not? You promised it to me. But see, I was that one that was, whatever, God, whatever. And God gave me this. Mom, if you came to me and said, Elegance, I got $200 for you. And I say, no, Mom, it can wait. Hold on to that. What you going to do with it? Amen. You're going to put it back in your pocket. God doing the same thing with our promises. Because we saying, I can wait. I can wait on it, God. I know you said it's mine. I know you said it belonged to me. But I can wait on it. So I'm going to take my time with it. But let's read this real quick. But what do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go work today in my vineyard. He answered and said, I will not. But afterward he regretted it and went. Then he came to the second and said likewise, and he answered and said, I go, sir. But he did not go. Go to the next one. Which of the 2 did the will of the Father? And they said the first. Jesus said to them, Assuredly I say to you that tax collectors and harlots enter the kingdom of God before you. The first son said, No, I ain't finna do that. I'm cool. But then he turned around and did it. But then the other son was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. Lord, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. And then you don't go do it. You don't do what God told you to do. You don't go where God told you to go. So, hey, look, who's the disobedient child? The one that said later. It was later he fell into obedience. How often have we told God, yes, we're going to do something and we haven't done it yet? We haven't done it yet. Yeah, Lord, I'm going to do it. Send me, Lord, I'll go. And then you don't go. You don't do what he told you to do. If he tell you, hey, start the ministry, you don't start it because you're waiting on God. You're waiting on the finances. You're waiting on God to make a way. Rather than stepping up and stepping out and doing it. Even with our podcast, we begin to see God move. We didn't have any equipment. We didn't know nothing. We had no idea, y'all, what we were doing. We like, okay, God showed us his vision. We're going to walk in it. We seen everything come together. We seen, even though we tried to get the interface and everything, we got the wrong stuff, y'all. But we began to see God give us everything that we needed, whether it was the producer, people to edit, the interface, the microphones, everything that we needed was right there. But had we said, you know what, I'm just waiting on God to give me a certain amount of money so that I can get all the equipment that I need, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go do it. What we would have missed out on. Seeing the provision of God. Seeing his promise for us come to pass. Seeing the blessing of God. So it's not always that because, you haven't done it yet. Now is the time for you to do it. Don't be that one that's saying, yes, Lord, I'll do it. Yes, Lord, I'll go. But then you don't. Because you are waiting on the right time. There'll never be a right time. There will never be a right time. It wasn't the right time for me to transition here. It wasn't the right time for me to leave UMA. I'm still trying to figure it out. There will never be a right time. Why? Because God wants your life. He wants to show you that he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ever ask or think. God has promised me another home. But because I have went through the process of not being able to qualify for the first home, I know that God can do it with the second home. Everything that God is showing me is showing me to rely completely and solely on him. And we got to think big. You're thinking too small. Think big. See yourself walking in what God told you. If you could do it on your own, you got to keep it in your flesh. You got to work hard to keep it. But when you say, God, I trust you for it, God gets to move in it. There's no heavy toil with God. It's no heavy toil with God. I was sitting back probably about maybe 2 months ago, and I was telling people, I'm like, man, everything is slow, ain't nothing happening. I feel like I'm not doing nothing. I think I told you Mario too. I'm like, I'm not doing nothing. And P just called me back, and she was like, maybe this is just the time that God just wants you to just get in his presence and not do nothing. I said, you know what? This is the perfect time just to be in his presence to get full. I don't have any demands with a job. I can move about when I need to. I can do the things that God told me to do. So I'm just going to get in his presence. And at that point, I ain't going to lie, y'all, begin to see God manifest all type of finances in my life. Checks was in the mail. Look, I had to leave one school, go to another school. They end up paying me because they lost their accreditation. So they end up having to pay me for the classes that I took. Listen, unexpected. You be like, Lord, for me? But yes, for us. When you trust, it is a labor to rest. It's not easy to say, you know what, I'm going to trust you. It's not easy to just let go. But I guarantee if you practice it, because it is a labor, you will be able to trust God sooner than later. And now it gets easier. This is where it gets easier. You really become a child of God. You really get to see the manifestation of his promises. And then people do have a mentality, but God did it for you. I am no one special. God could do it for you too. Be it unto you according to your faith. If you can stand it, if you can just stand in it. I know you are so used to trying to do it on your own. So used to trying to figure it out. But let God figure it out for you. Especially as women, when you have, and I honestly believe that this is why, men are ahead sometimes, because they could look at something and be like, oh, that's cool, I ain't even gonna worry about that. But women be like, no, this got to be done. We got to make sure this get done. We got to put this in order. And then you got to see the whole blueprint. But the men are usually like, that's the attitude that we need to have. Amen. But that's when you begin to see it, because the enemy cannot attack anything that you give to God. If I say, Lord, I give this to you, the enemy can't come and torment you with that. He can't come and say, I'm going to take that away. All right, go ahead, take that away. Did you see what God did the last time? Go ahead, you can have it, because I already know he finna give me something bigger and better. We get fearful just because we got to do it. We feel like we got to do it on our own, but you're not by yourself. You got God, and you got to speak the word over yourself. Your next is now. You cannot keep waiting on God, because God has already supplied the plan for you. He's shown it to you, whether it's through a dream, whether it's through a prophetic word. God already told you what to do. But you let fear, torment, lies, deception of the enemy tell you what will not happen. This is where we got to get bold and aggressive in the spirit. This is why meditation is important. You can only get aggressive when you meditate the word day and night. Why? Because that word becomes a part of you. What's in you comes out. If I begin to speak life, that's what I'm going to have. But if I'm speaking death all the time and I'm thinking everything is going to fail, everything is going to fall. That's what's going to happen. But when I stand up in the face of the enemy and I say, no, this belongs to me. You ain't got to deal with me, but you got to deal with my daddy. And you let it go. And you see God work. So if there is a promise that God has for you that you are fearful to walk into, I urge you to just sit with the Father and meditate the word day and night. I don't care what it is. Keep speaking it. Keep decreeing it. Keep declaring it. Keep fighting for what God told you belong to you. It's yours. Your finances. Your new home. You know, it's crazy because we could believe God for everything else. For me, I've learned to believe God for material things, but I'm learning to believe God for other things, such as even my own marriage. People were telling me at first, you ain't married because you don't see yourself married. I was like, well, yes, I do. Yes, I do. But in all actuality, I didn't, because I didn't look twice. I heard the word. It was always good. It was always good. But why can't we speak that now? Right? Again, if we're waiting on God, yeah, you wait on God when it comes down to that. But you're not waiting being passive with it. See, I'm not a girlfriend. I'm a wife. You got to know who you are. You got to know who you are. So if I begin to speak that over myself, we already been taught. You don't say you single. You're whole. If I keep saying I'm single, that's what's going to happen. Because my words have that much power. So it's nothing wrong with the desire for marriage. God gave it to you. It's a godly institution. Decree it over yourself. Declare it over yourself. See yourself walking in it. And the more you're intimate with the Father, I believe that He'll show you who your person is. So whether feel like you've been delayed, it's late, it's never too late. It's only late when you don't walk in it at all. You gave God a yes, but you haven't moved in it. So I hope and pray that y'all took those biblical principles, those rhema words, the logos words, whatever prophetic words y'all received off of the shelf and saw yourselves walking in it. If anybody want faith for prayer for faith, if y'all want to come forth, I'll pray for y'all.